Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Miles' Trial. As you know, we have just wrapped up on the closing statements from both legal teams, and we have already started the deliberation process for the jurors as of yesterday. And today, there are not really much of an update because the jury is still in the deliberation process. But we do have a number of things that we will still update you guys on, just because we have only wrapped up on the witnesses' testimonies from both of the legal teams, but we have not gotten to the opening and closing, the closing statements from both legal teams as of yet. But today we will be going through the opening statements, and we will be taking some time, just because for the closing statement they're very different from the opening statements, because there are a number of evidences that are included in the closing statements where both legal teams seeks to highlight certain elements in the testimonies made by their witnesses, and to establish the arguments made during the testimony of the witnesses. So this will be very interesting to see, and this is why I have Jackson and Feather here today. I know the episode that we actually skipped was because we have Jackson and Feather to stay until the whole day of the trial to make sure they have all the information from the closing statement. So now we are able to give you guys a more thorough overview of the closing statements. So let's welcome Jackson and Feather onto the show. It's good to have you guys on.
Howdy, everybody. We're back.
So, as we mentioned briefly yesterday, that the closing statements started in Wednesday, and starting by the government, this 3 hours closing statement, then followed by the defense closing statement, then the government has a rebuttal of an hour-ish, right? So the closing statement starts approximately 10:30 a.m. On Wednesday. So the government, it's called government summation. So as Saturn mentioned, it's like there are a lot of evidence, a lot of exhibits been shown during the closing statements, and government was presented with a slideshow kind of thing that says the title is government summation, which includes a lot of their arguments and the evidence they want to show to refresh jury and everyone's recollection or the memory of, let's say, the exhibition evidence has been shown earlier during the trial, to emphasize and to make the arguments clear and clear again, right?
Right. Now, would you say that the order of the evidence being shown were linear, or were they mainly categorized by the arguments?
Yeah, it's very, I would say it's very well organized. You have the like a heading, and then you have the subheading, and then you have there's let's say a thesis statement, right? And you have the topic sentence,
right?
And then you have the evidences to prove the topic sentence, right? This is what the format is basically. But the evidence you asked, it's not linear. So I want to say the first evidence they played before starting the talking about this summation. The government showed the audio of Miles on the phone talking with Yvette Wang and William G. And it's the recording made by Haitham Khaled, which worked as a finance, like a banking person, relationship person in Crane. And then he testified on behalf of the government. And this is audio, and then, there's audio of conversations, there's some arguments in the audio, and then when the audio finished playing, and the first sentence he says, "That's the real Miles goal." This is you heard proves. This is what you hear. This is him. This is him without a mask. You heard about the proof of all G entities, and he's tricking followers to give him money. Talking lies and recording. This is a recording of him planning to send the money abroad. So this is a recording of him committing a crime, and this is how they start off with, and make a very strong impression on the jury. Again, with that audio, it's been played already 5 more times, and then then it expands onto other evidence, and there's like a roadmap that they listed,
So they kind of outlined some of the arguments and points they wanted to make in their closing statements.
Yes, there's a roadmap they made. First one is the charges to remind what are the charges against Miles. Second it's what is the second one?
The second is what cannot be disputed.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of what the government believes what cannot be disputed.
And the third one is the schemes, right? And the fourth one is reasons you know that Miles is guilty. So in the government's mind, Miles is guilty, but he's innocent to this day until he's proven guilty, beyond reasonable doubt. Okay, so
because the jury hasn't reached a verdict yet.
Exactly. So first one, starting off with the charges, and they talk about the charges. Okay, but sorry, before this roadmap being present, and he was giving like introductions, right?
Yep.
Everything that Miles is in control of everything, and all the entities names the G Enterprise. It's a G Enterprise. And the farms, G News, G Claw, Himalaya Exchange, ETV, Himalaya Alliance. It's a fraud empire. This is like the label that they give to all the entities. And then move forward to no serious dispute, right? You want to talk a little bit about that?
So they played actually two different clips. The first, like what Feather was saying, before they got into all the charges, the first clip was a conversation that was recorded in private, right? From a gentleman by the name of Khaled, right? Haitham Khaled, and we know his background with how he has lied on his. Anyways, with that being said, the second video that was played is a compilation video of Mr. Miles Guo talking about how. Yeah, it's a combination.
Yeah.
So it's like a cut and
cut
and piece
with
together
a lot of
video.
video clips. Yes.
Everything was, cut and pasted, like you said, of all the video clips of Mr. Miles Guo, some of the things he said and whatnot. So that's pretty much the beginning of it. And then, as what Feather was saying, part one is the charges against Mr. Miles, and they went over the conspiracy charges, as well as the 12 counts, the substantive charges, right? And then he read those out loud, what they are, this thing, that thing, to kind of like do his thing. And then number two is what cannot be disputed. And he started off by saying that there were hundreds of videos promoting investment opportunities, right? So that's essentially the first one.
And that's all the evidence that the government called that proves that he's guilty. And the government, also said those international investment opportunity raised $100 million, and he put up the chart with also the source of funds, and then he talked about that Miles worked with others on those investment opportunities. That means like
to create the conspiracy that they are.
It's like a organization.
The organization, the G Enterprise, So you have Yvette Wang. You have William G, the finance guy. This is, and Yvette Wang is the day-to-day operation, and the William G is the finance guy. There are others, carry out these vision. And you have
so like
listed a bunch of person. Yeah, starting in the top is Miles, and then you have the.
Yvette on this.
Yes.
Well, there's Yvette, there's William G, and then underneath there, because it's like a flow chart of some sort, it's like a bubble chart. And then underneath you have, like, for example, Horan He, Mileson, Longland and Brother, Qixia, Max Krasner, just to outline that this is an enterprise and they're all conspiring together to defraud and to do whatnots. So that's kind of like the idea.
And the next one is the actions are taken in. That means there are wires transferred to the farms. There are wires transferred to and from Manhattan here. From the offices, like the locations. They give
like
up
the 64th Street that they call it the townhouse. But I mean, that's a really big townhouse if you want to call it a townhouse, right? But 64th Street, there's the shared Netherlands. So they want to kind of include all these different pieces of quote unquote assets that were involved, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and then they also showed that the red Lamborghini, Miles Guo's garage, the house garage. And that matches the VIN number on the G Club paper. It's to emphasize.
Isn't it funny how he contradicts himself a little bit, right? Because he said in court that, hey, here's a Lamborghini with a VIN number that matches a document from G Clubs.
This we're gonna get into this, like how the defense argued on this.
Because in the end they were trying to say that Miles has stolen people's assets to purchase these luxury items, right? And in the end the VIN number matches up with G Clubs because G Clubs.
Yeah, I mean the legality of it has Mr. Miles' name is nowhere near on the documentation, the legal documentation of any of these assets, that was presented in court.
Right.
And this is also used by government saying that this is all because he hides behind all this, but on the paper he's none of the owner of any of the entities.
Right.
It's like saying he has like a shell. He has other people to control, but then he's the one behind everything. That kind of thing. That's what they want us to think, and also. They mentioned that the CCP targeted Miles, and they said it's true, but they don't. Well, the government literally said, I don't care about how many cell phones he has. I don't care about why he has that many cell phones, and either should you, the jury, care about it. What you care about is what's on the cell phones. It's not how many, right? That's what they said, and.
Well, I want to add one point because this is the A, B, C, D, E, F, the sixth point that the government raised when it comes to the quote unquote the cannot be seriously disputed, right? So the point was that the government said in court that Mr. Miles was targeted by the CCP, undisputed. We agree. He very very much. She also said the FBI charged those people with targeting. Yes, those people were charged. Okay. For
like
example,
individuals like George Higginbotham and those.
Yeah.
They really want to separate the movement and what happened to him, his experience with the CCP and being targeted by CCP. Want to separate all this
from this case.
From this case. Yeah.
So make no mistake, it is undisputed from both sides, the government and the defense side, that everybody's on the same page when it comes down to Mr. Miles Guo is the number one enemy of the CCP, because the government even said, hey, he was talking about the CCP, FBI, charging these people, obviously, with the targeting. So that's now in court. Very interesting.
Right, because in the end, there happened another case, right? Because we just have someone who played a role in that case, George Higginbotham, testify, and the fact that all of the individuals who had conspired to repatriate Miles were pled guilty, it is a fact. Because of the information that they have already testified to in a different case. So it is undeniable that Miles is the number one enemy of the Chinese Communist Party, and there has been a massive effort from the CCP to repatriate him. So I think that's why they're trying to keep the two cases separate, because this in fact is true.
Oh yeah. So thank you. Anyways.
So the next section would be the next section of the summation, government summation. It would be Miles' schemes. So this basically lists out all the so-called scheme listed by the governments. For example, Rule of Law Foundation, GTV, the farms, G Clubs, Himalaya Exchange, and the A10 project. So and then for each so-called scheme, they talked about the reasons that Miles is guilty, and because he told this lie on this. So like a summary of for Rule of Law, what he lied about, and then for GTV, what he lied about. Okay, for Farm Loan Program, what he lied about. With G Club, what he lied about. Himalaya Exchange, A10 project, and all that. So
it's basically a summary breakdown of the quote-unquote schemes, and then that was just the layout, and then what they did was they went through it one by one as to what they believed and why these are called quote-unquote schemes. So when it comes to the Rule of Law Foundation, we actually have a list, if I may, maybe read a couple things of some of the things, right, that Rule of Law has done in the past. And we have live streamed on these things as well. So, for example, during the pandemic assistance. Okay, during the COVID-19 pandemic, the Rule of Law Foundation purchased and distributed a large number of masks, disinfectants, and other supplies to help hospitals and police stations on the East Coast of the United States cope with the pandemic. I mean, we have lists of evidence, right, of things that was done. And okay, maybe we can read a couple more. Like, for example, number 2, assisting persecuted Chinese compatriots. Like, for example, the Rule of Law Foundation actively assisted Chinese compatriots that were persecuted by the Chinese Communist Party, the CCP, providing legal assistance and living support to help them escape persecution, obtain safety and freedom. Number 3, which Feather actually has first-hand experience, which is humanitarian aid for Ukraine when that whole debacle went down. Now,
we actually set up a base of for the refugees who are trying to leave Ukraine at the time.
At the Polish and Ukraine border, like right at the border, when the people come out and they can, there's a big tent that they walked in, and you have it provides shelter, it provides food, water, and anything, clothes, anything they need. We try as much as we can. We even help a lot of people with their flight tickets and getting in touch with their family abroad, like in the U.S. and Canada, and then send them on the flights to reunite with their family, etc. This is all supported by Rule of Law Foundation. That's in 2022, and but the government made this whole arguments about making false promise that the money is now used to help the Chinese people that's been prosecuted by CCP. But then it's I'm not sure if it's said in literally our objectives or like the mission of Rule of Law Foundation or Rule of Law Society. There's by all means. That means like taking down the Chinese Communist Party by all means. For example, the use of social media, right? Helping people. And
how about this? I can read the headers for some of these without, because if you guys like, I could really read all this for you guys, but so just to go with it.
For sure, we're gonna read it. But my point is that helping and then using the money, it's in a lot of ways to help. Also establish this broadcast room today that we are in. It's another way to help taking down the Chinese Communist Party. It's all aligned with the Rule of Law Foundation's goal, right? It's to speak up against the CCP and to spread the truth and spread news to people who wants to know and who don't know anything, right? And this is also a part of it. And you cannot say that this money is being misused, right? And also, they talk about the $100 million that Miles donates. They said they didn't donate, right? Miles never made a promise to donate $100 million at once, right? And this is also, argued. This is also arguments in the defense closing statement, saying that there were proof that to show that Miles actually sent money in Rule of Law Foundation. And there's like millions of dollars went in, but it didn't make up to 100 million. But there's no way someone can have 100 million cash sent in one foundation at like a day, right? This has been continuously fulfilled. This promise. That doesn't mean he's not doing it, right? And this is we're gonna talk about it later. But please continue with the rule of law.
Yeah. So with the rule of law, just to name a couple more things, the humanitarian aid for Ukraine, advocacy and education. Another one. We also have participation in major gatherings and events such as the America Fest, Turning Point USA 2022, 2023, as well as CPAC event in 2023.
To convey like message of rule of law and the freedom, our objectives, and the freedom to global audiences. If you followed us before, we're very active. We have like a really nice booth at the M-Fest.
Probably, in my personal opinion, I might be biased, but I think probably one of the best booths at America Fest. We have our flags, banners all over the buildings. It's undeniable. Undeniable.
Yeah, very organized. Very beautiful.
And a couple more things to point out about the Rule of Law Foundation. It's really against any totalitarian regimes, right? I think that's a highlight. Is that right now the Chinese Communist Party is the most evil of all these regimes, but it doesn't only pertain to the CCP itself. It could like think about the Ukraine rescue operation. It's because it was still against it's still to help out the victims of a totalitarian regime's actions, right? And I think as you said it, you mentioned it beautifully. It's not black and white in what we could do to pursue this purpose. There's many ways we can do it, like Jackson had just mentioned, through advocacy, right? I think right now in this time it's so important for us to educate people on the evils of the Chinese Communist Party and the dangers of the Chinese Communist Party, especially when we, the NFSC, has so much exclusive intelligence to provide, right? So whenever we attend these events like America Fest, we actually have provided so many pieces of intelligences while we are at those events. So in essence, what it speaks to what we do. I think that is the most crucial part, is really just education and advocacy and the spread of the truth.
Yes, because without knowing everything, without learning about it, there's no way you can start to take actions, right? This is like a threshold that you have to step in order to make actions, because you need to learn all about this. Because without realization, without knowing what's happening, you can't. What are you gonna do, right? You can't. There's no way you're gonna start doing actions.
You can't protect yourself against the evil if you're not aware of the evil itself.
Yes.
Correct.
And I think in recent years, this has actually been in the media, it's actually been more information going out there about the Chinese Communist Party. And so whenever we bring intelligence onto the table, I think it has been very positively received, because the intelligence we get are oftentimes very classified. Military intelligences in regards to the nuclear bases they were setting up, and also all the biochemical weapon labs also that is being set up
they
by
found
the
illegal
Chinese Communist Party.
biolabs in California, for example. And at the end of the day, like what Saturn was saying, is that number one, they're classified. Number two, if there's no truth to them, why would the CCP even care? Why are they so afraid to, one, attack and target and do all the things? So one is very classified information. Number two, it's just the truth is the truth at the end of the day. And I think like everybody can go back on Getter, gettr.com. You guys can find all of our live streams that Feather was there at the Ukraine rescue mission, and everything else that was happening, the AmFest, even CPAC, and you name it. All these events we've had live streams. I believe we live streamed for like hours, the whole event pretty much. So all proof and evidence. Yeah,
and move on next, the so-called lie by the government. It's the GTV private placement. We're gonna talk about this. Let me just see here. Basically the argument is that about the private placement, how they lied to people, how GTV lied that what the purpose of GTV is and how it will be used, and the mission, the goal, and use of proceeds. Basically, it's the private placement memorandum. That's what the main argument it is. Like, say you didn't do what your memorandum said it was gonna do, and later on it's gonna be it's gonna be like a cross, it's gonna be argued back by Sid, by the defense
it was
team.
cleared up.
For sure it was never a confusion, right? For everyone, every investors, thousands of people, 5,000 people invest in over 5,000 people invest in private placement GTV at the time, okay? And it was estimated that this worth $2 billion, right? By evaluation, by the expert, business evaluator. And if there's let's say people that said they got scammed, right? But there's other people, there are thousands of people that still invest in it, that want the money to keep in GTV investment, although it's been closed. But they're not dumb, right? They're not stupid. They have their own judgments. Everyone has their own judgments. Maybe some judgments are different than others, but they all have their own.
Our own critical thinking and
yes, and you can't say that you can't say one person is for all, right? Like one person's opinion for all. So, the lies, he lied about what's gonna use it for, the guarantee of no loss, that the money he spent on himself and family. This is the three main lies about all of the so-called schemes that's argued by the government, okay? The next one's the farm loan program, lend money to get stock, he gives testimony of other government's defendants. So, they mainly used government's witnesses in this summation, This is something I brought up. A lot of the testimonies are from government's witness, but when in defense, well, for sure they're testimony of our own defense witness,
Right.
but there are a lot of government's witness.
Oh, that's actually very interesting because
Yes.
you wouldn't really expect, after seeing what the prosecution has put together, I wouldn't really expect the other witnesses to be included. But it seems that you could include both of the information from both the witnesses on both
Yes.
sides,
Yeah.
which is very interesting.
They can use
Yeah.
all the evidence from both sides when it's admitted, and also both witnesses' testimony if they're like it's useful for them, right?
Right.
Yeah. So next one move on is G clubs. Basically, let me just catch my thought here.
Yeah, before
Yeah.
I'm gonna let you catch your thought real quick. Just one more thing I'd like to add is the fact that the prosecution actually has a lot more witnesses than the defense. So I think it kind of does make sense, to mix in some of the information in there just because maybe it is something that to kind of lay the grounds, right, to for an argument. So I think that also is a reason because there has been quite a lot more witnesses on the prosecution side than the defense.
Yeah, the government had a total of 35 witnesses. The defense had a total of only 9.
9.
And I mean, to go back a little bit with the private placement, they really wanted to talk about how the funds were moved around, this thing, that thing, and how this money went to Haven Capital and whatnot. I mean, we'll get to it when the time comes. It's like, for example, when it came to this argument, he was saying that, hey, look at the money going to this account, and then this account, Chase account this, with this number, that account with this number. But at the end of the day, here's the, maybe I won't say it too early, but here, a really great example is this. I mean, Sid is the attorney that did the closing for us, Mr. Miles Gohl. And the great example was this. For example, if you had $2,000 in your bank account, okay, and your grandma sent you $2,000 for let's say birthday purposes, like for a birthday gift, right?
Right.
And then you had $2,000 of rent. I mean, in the account now, let's just you have $4,000. You have to pay $2,000 in rent. So when you use your account to pay that $2,000, how do you connect the dots between is $20 from that $2,000 from your grandma's $2,000 is at the end of the day. So that was the example that Sid gave that really stood out to me, and it's just like there is no connection. At the end of the day.
Right, because it's all pooled into the same location, and then when it's spent again from the pool, it's difficult.
It's very clean.
Right.
So the government, even through the trial, up until even the closing, has always generalized and say, essentially presented quote unquote their evidence again, even though it's cleared up in trial and everything's on transcript. So, what can I say?
Yeah. I think we can move a little bit faster about all the reasons they give.
Okay.
So they give a lot of reasons about that Miles attacked people who try to take back the fraud proceed. Like Miles's attacks. Like for example, there's one evidence that showed that Miles attacked, but they didn't give the full image. Didn't give the full context of what happened, and it's only from one person saying, right? And you don't know what happened, and that witness would never know if Miles take any steps forward to arrange a lot of other stuff. But for let's say G clubs, I want to mention that they were trying to argue that the benefits, that's not true, right? That they're a farce. It's a way to tell people to send him money and more money, and I don't know, like it's all the same. All the reasons they give and all the reasons they give that make jury believe he's guilty is that he tells lies about how he guaranteed, and he guaranteed no loss, he guaranteed only gain, and that he used all the money on himself and his family. So this is the three main arguments that the government trying to put up there, So
are there any entities or I guess investment programs besides the farm loan and also G clubs that they brought up?
Yes.
And and also the private
the-
placement.
And Himalaya Exchange.
Yeah, I mean, with the farm loan argument, they really wanted to say that, hey, take a look at the interest that you were promised, right? This thing and that thing you were promised. Like, for example, when it comes to the interest rate, the farm loan program, you're supposed to receive, for example, 3%. And they say, oh, nobody received any interest. What happened, right? And then again, when it came to our closing statement is made very clear. I mean, they even like when because the closing statement from the government was done by Ryan Finkel, okay, first and foremost, and on the screen when he was arguing about how nobody got any interest, he literally had a screenshot that says, the interest rate is due at maturity between 3 to 5 years. Like he had the screenshot, and the screenshot, if somebody just read it, will understand that it doesn't make sense as to what he was saying in court, because the maturity date hasn't even, passed yet. So legally, nobody was supposed to actually receive any interest anyways. So anyways, that was something that I caught.
Yeah, and also they mentioned about the disclaimer that Miles often talk about in his broadcast and also on paper too. Disclaimer and on G clubs and everything. And the disclaimer they're saying, how on the white paper, or let's say this is this, to actually formally, legally to tell what this is, that this document, this investment is, it is a disclaimer. So for government, this is an intention. It's his intention to have a disclaimer. Okay, it's to protect himself if anything like this happens. Because you can't, because government keeps always saying that you can't blame on the victim, let's say the witness, the so-called victims, that they didn't read the disclaimer. You have to blame on Miles's intention to fraud. This is you have to focus on. But the thing is, it's like Sid mentioned, it's like damn you do, damn you don't, right? If you do put a disclaimer, they say, oh, it's your intention to fraud people, and this is just to protect yourself. But if you don't put a disclaimer, isn't it even worse, right? So it's like both ways. Like you have ways to make it bad, right? Like if you do both ways, the government says it's you're not doing
it can be argued both ways.
Yes.
Yeah.
This is like there's a Chinese saying, like, if you want to give crime to this, add crime to this person, you will find a reason to find the crime on this person. I don't know if I can put it better way, but this is like what it means basically. With the disclaimer, later on we found out that a lot of things that Miles doesn't even know, there's a disclaimer. He was never in charge of the disclaimer, because let's say the G clause belongs to Limarie Reyes, which was the former CEO of G Club Puerto Rico. The disclaimer is her and her marketing team put up on the website for themselves. If Miles is the boss, like everyone said, like why would his employees do something that doesn't even ask him, right? Are you're gonna get fired by the boss if you don't ask them about this? This is pretty important. It's a disclaimer, right?
Yeah, it really showcased. I mean, with the whole disclaimer. What it really showcased is that people that were in charge of these business, like for example, Limarie Reyes with G Clubs, right? They were independent thinkers and they made decisions outside of Mr. Miles Guo. When it came, like this is just one example of the disclaimer that was added without getting quote unquote approval from Mr. Miles Guo. He didn't even know. So it's like people were independent thinkers. They made decisions, like. Individually, standalone, away from Mr. Miles Guo. So that actually, cleared up a lot of that.
Right, because I do remember in a lot of in quite a few of the witnesses' testimonies, it was made in the way that gave the impression that Miles instructed them to do certain things, and later during cross-examination or in some of the certain parts of the testimonies like you had just mentioned, that we found out there's certain things that they put out. They pretty much had the full liberty to decide on what to put out, like the disclaimer. And I do understand also with the services as well, right, for G clubs. I think that was also given that they also had the liberty to do that as
Yeah.
opposed to being instructed to by Miles.
Yeah. You mean like the service and benefits provided by G Club?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, like talking about G Clubs, the membership fee, like Sid gave a really good example about the membership. So it's like you pay for Apple Music or Spotify, you pay like
Netflix.
yeah, same thing. The subscription to something, to a membership. You just pay the money and you enjoy the benefits in their service, right?
Yep.
And this is for G Club. It's a lifetime benefits. You don't give like money continuously to keep your membership. You pay it and then you enjoy for the rest of your life. And whatever added to the benefits, you would enjoy, right?
Correct.
So for this, it like the membership we mentioned earlier, you give the money, you enjoy benefits, and your money is gone. There's no way you can like take it back because you enjoy the benefits. Like how this is not a buy something
like,
you return.
Yeah, it's like, for example, if you subscribe to Netflix and you watched a year, 2 years of movies and TV shows on Netflix, and then you call their accounting back and say, hey, can I get my 2 years of subscription money back? I don't think anybody's going to give you your money back. I mean, you can try with, Netflix. I mean, you name it, Spotify, Hulu's of the world. I mean, you can try calling them.
Yeah.
But
this is the same thing.
The business,
right? It's the same thing. And also they talk about how G Clubs are developing all the benefits all around the world, and you starting with G Fashion, but there was travel, there was hotel deals, there was all that, and a Formula One experience, all that. But keep in mind that when that all happened, it was in 2020, the peak of pandemic. Like
couldn't travel.
Just think about all the challenges that everyone is going through. All the challenges exist for that company as well in G Club. It's the same. And all the struggles, and then even normal people, students have struggles, let alone a start-up company, right?
Yeah.
Like this is all the facts you have to consider, right? There's challenges facing by the company and like any other companies, right?
Yeah, like what Feather was saying, when it comes down to the benefits, like for example, the travel benefits, the hotel benefits, well, the pandemic, nobody could travel anyways. Right? Where could we go? Well, everybody was locked down. And another argument was brought up from the benefit of G Fashion. Well, the government brought businesses on that spent thousands of dollars on G Fashion.
And not only spend so much, how much did they receive in discounts?
The discounts.
Also thousands of dollars.
Thousands of dollars.
Yeah.
And the thing is,
they complain
despite the quality that they were complaining about, they still decided to spend thousands of dollars on a piece of clothing that So it's like, go to any large name brand. Like if you go to Rolex, you bought something, you say, oh, I don't know about this watch, it's not the best, but I got something on my wrist now. So it's like, so of course, so it actually solidified that, guess what, you actually received benefit, right? And you actually bought these things yourself, right? Nobody coerced you, right? Like Feather, I'm not coercing you to buy a piece of G Fashion. Right? Like nobody, like Mr. Miles goes like, hey, I'm gonna, you're forced to buy G. Nobody's forcing anybody to buy G Fashion. So that was very interesting. That was brought up with G Fashion and government's witness.
Yeah. Like for example, the witness by the government, Joe Le, right? He was a former filer. He bought like 30-ish pieces of G Fashion, and then he starting up with complaining the quality. Like Miles did, he complained about quality too, and as we all know, in the Lian, the CEO of G Fashion testified that they changed the manufacturer, they changed everything to level up the quality. But then back to Joel, he spent money on G Fashion and complained about quality. He continued to purchase G Fashion, even though he complained about the quality, right? And he mentioned that this is a way he thinks he will contribute to the movement, that he thinks that this is a good cause. Yeah. And talking about movement, government trying to separate completely that this case, it's nothing to do with the whistleblower movement. It has nothing to do with him being a target. If anyone who's a target is his victims, that's what government's word. That his victim is a target, he's not a target of CCP. That's what's mattered, and that's what he said. you know, and he's not sure if Miles is a political activist, so.
And you know what's interesting? Because when they're going through this, they're saying, hey, these are the lies, right, that Mr. Miles told. But we actually caught a lie that the government said in court, which was he said that Mulan, or Mr. Miles gave the sunglasses
one
to
of the
Mulan.
government's witnesses.
Yeah, one of the government witnesses. I forget the exact number, but one of the government witnesses, Mulan, or her internet name is Mulan, but her real name is Yali, Y-A-L-I, that Mr. Miles gave her, Yali, a pair of sunglasses for the work she has done. But we know the reality, and it was testifying in court, and it's also in the transcript, that it's her that asked for the glasses, right? She complimented Mr. Miles, go, oh my God, it looks so good, this thing, that thing. And then Mr. Miles, go out of his generosity, sent it to her. Not for the work she's done, but just, right? So that was very interesting. I caught, like, oh, okay.
Yeah,
you know,
for sure. So I just want to, summarizing the government summation by Sid's word, so our defense lawyer's word. He said the government's summation is long on talks and short on evidence. So, they're giving you, they want you to connect the dots, from evidence to evidence, but they didn't give you the dots to connect. There's no actual evidence for you to even make that connection if you look at evidence one by one, piece by piece, right? And so they said government has failed to prove Miles is guilty, and
from the defense's
from the
statements.
defense, yes. So we're like we can let's do a little bit crossover.
Yeah, I think that's okay because what we're trying to do here is kind of provide the full idea of what is going on between the two statements, because as we know, this is about a compilation of all the evidences, and we have already seen some of the cross-examinations done by our defense team. So I think it is very appropriate for us to kind of get into some of the cross arguments from the defense side.
Yeah. So starting off, before talking about the case, before talking about the entities he established the whistleblower movement. Okay, we have to think about what he did to advance this movement, right? And speaking against the CCP, and the CCP trying so hard to destroy his credibility, because he's a pro-democracy, pro-freedom, and trying to bring this to the Chinese people in China. He's a pro-Chinese democracy movement. Wants to destroy this at its birth, right? Like, for example, there's Hogs Fund, there's Red Notice, you name it, right? And this is to get him out of this country and send him back to China. And this has been proven again in court by George Higginbotham.
Yeah.
So all of this happened. That pushes him to establish this movement. So you have to think about the things that happened to him that made him the CCP's number one priority of attack, right? He turned down the offer, the warning that the Secretary Liu, we talk about the CCP, a kleptocrat, and then he still keeps talking about it, and he's getting more popular, and then this is how he established the movement and get followers. So this question being raised, like, how much would you have to care about something involved your family, your company, your employees, your life work, just because your life sacrificing amount of work, just for money, right?
Right, because Mr. Miles had already achieved such a high level that he has such a luxurious life. He did not have to do any of this and put any of this on the line. He could have led the very luxurious life. Being a private citizen like anyone else that he could have, right? His family, everybody, like you mentioned. But he chose to take this path, this mission of taking down the CCP, to bring freedom, democracy, the rule of law, freedom of speech, freedom of religion, you name it, to China, the Chinese people, for the very first time in history. Like, for the very first time in history, and everything's documented. That's the beautiful thing about this.
Right, and just think about all the assets that the CCP sees that belong to Miles, in Hong Kong, and also the danger that not only just himself but also his family members faced prior to right after he began to go on the mission of taking down the CCP, and whistleblowing against the CCP.
Right, and the government argues that everything starts after the Hong Kong government seized his assets and everywhere else. This is the argument that saying, oh, look, his assets been seized, right? He's frozen. You cannot take any money out. That's why he starts to defraud people to give him money. This is his arguments. So the thing is, they forgot he has a family fund. And he has family, right? His brothers, his wife, his friends, his sons. They're all like, they all give him a hand of help. And then, like I said earlier, like, if he needs money, would he actually throw everything away just for money? His life, right? His family, his company, etc., etc., etc. So, living in a luxurious life, that's long before. That's never changed. Something that's never changed. What he wears in 10, 15 years ago, he still wears now. It's the same. And he doesn't have to go around this whole thing, to make all these efforts just to enjoy his luxury life he's been already enjoying, right?
Because Mr. Miles is a multi-billionaire, guys, by the way. You guys can look at some of the work he's done in the past, some of the real estate that he's developed. This man is a multi-billionaire, and he's a cheat. So yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, just using common sense is...
And yeah, for sure, like, use common sense, and it's absolutely no way that you can take the movement, the whistleblower movement, out of any entity, anything, the movement, anything he established and he inspired people to do, because what happened to him, with the PACs, right? The bankruptcy,
the PAX case that eventually led up to the bankruptcy case.
Yes, the PAX, PACs and VOA, Voice of America. When his interview got cut off. Yeah, the Red Notice, of Operation Hogs Fund. That all. Do you think after experiencing all that, they did nothing? That did nothing to his mind.
Well, to his lifestyle too. They talked about how he continued to live the life he lived. I mean,
you think that none of that happened for nothing? You think that did nothing to his mind, what he thinks, the way he thinks changed, right? This is how he have all that experience carried with him to invest in all the movements. Everything that it is now, right?
Right. And another thing too, I would like to point out is, think about back then in June 4th, the Tiananmen Square massacre. In June 4th, as we know, Miles has sold some of his assets at the time, which is just not a whole lot to say the least, because he starting out, he lived a more ordinary life, just like any of us. He had a motorcycle that he owned at the time. He sold his motorcycle and used the funds to support the Chinese people of the June 4th movement who wanted to go against the Chinese Communist Party. And unfortunately, he also lost one of his brothers as well. And also, I think after that, it has been taking down the CCP has been something that's always been a part of his purpose. And I think that is the important thing, is to not really just consider the fact that he wanted to take down the CCP at that moment, because there's a whole process, right? I think for him, even think about back then when he constructed one of his hotels, some of the CCP members, they wanted to take the hotel away from him. He did what he was able to prevent that the first time around. But as we know now, the hotel is being seized, is already been seized by the Chinese Communist Party. And we can begin to see, how long Miles has really, been preparing to build a movement to go against the Chinese Communist Party and to, take down the CCP hopefully one day.
And I mean, speaking of June 4th, really quick, I'll add a point, is that it's undeniable Mr. Miles has been a fighter for freedom, democracy, and rule of law. All the way goes back to before he was even in his 20s.
Right, and he was on death row too.
For June the 4th. People that were locked up with him were, dragged out, executed, you name it. So he's lived through a very rough ordeal.
And also he invests so much of his time doing the GTV and Rule of Law Foundation. He established these things and relationship with Kyle Bath and Steve Bannon, all that to advance all the movements and stuff. And if his goal from beginning is to fraud people, why did he do so much, right? The time and effort he put in, it's all proven by the witness testimony. Why did he invest that much to do so, right? And also I wanted to say, just look at the timeline of everything what happened. He has bankruptcy case in 2022, right? GTV private placement, farm loan program, G Clubs, Himalaya Exchange, that all happened in 2020 and 2021. So before that, he didn't file personal bankruptcy. So when bankruptcy case happened, they asked him to pay.
It was over $100 million.
It was $100 million
cash.
in 5 business days, right? Why didn't he use investor money to pay it?
Right.
Right?
Right. And
like,
I think that's a very great point made by our defense team when they came up in cross-examination.
Yeah, right? So, and also, like, all the statements are, you know, if all the statements are made with a fraudulent intent, you know, there's no evidence that showed him asking money, say, hey, do this for me, I need money, I'm broke. You know, Yvette, do this for me. Or William G., you know, I need money. Like, you gotta take this money out of this account. There's none of that.
I think it's not only the fact that he has a bankruptcy case, just also take into the account the number of cases he has. He has over 70. He's facing over 70 cases. Man. So that alone, there's already a lot of legal fees I can imagine that comes along with that. In addition to the fine from the bankruptcy case.
Yeah, and the thing about this is, like, if there are real evidence that he has misused the funds from the investors, then that would have been shown in court, actually, to say, oh, look, we have a bill, he paid for his legal services, and it's from this, but we didn't get it. We didn't see anything. There were no evidence.
Yeah. So also about Lamborghini, I wanted to say, the only evidences show is that it was found in Miles's Connecticut house garage, you know, with the cover on, with the battery plugged, everything, and another evidence is that seeing him, you know, with the directed by Himalaya Alliance to be in the promotion video for H-Coin and G Club, H-Coin, in Himalaya Exchange and G Club. You know, he was sitting in a Lamborghini, probably driving for 10 feet, right? In a private road, 10 feet in private road. This is what literally Sid said, that he drove for 10 feet, right? And he looked terrified. So like, they didn't show any other proof that Miles owns the car and he used the car, you know, using invested money for himself, right? And also in that they say that he's part of everything. He gives his opinion. He's not only a spokesperson. He manages everything. Everyone asks him, but that's not the truth, because he gets mad at people for not doing what he wants to do, and people do what the way, you know, the company is supposed to do, and that's why he gets concerned. You know, he cares about this company. He cares about entity. You get concerns, right? You worry about the problems they're facing. This is how you involve in a discussion. They say, oh, I want to know about this, right? This doesn't mean that you actually have a say in it, you know? Yeah, that's another point. Is there anything else you wanted to add?
Yeah, we just have 5 minutes left for the show. I think we can just wrap up on like one or two more points.
Okay. Well, I mean, let me. Okay, so when it comes down to the all the quote unquote schemes, maybe on another episode we can go over the number 4, which are the reasons you know that Mr. Miles was guilty. So let me take a look. I mean, when it comes to the Himalaya Exchange, the main argument is that the transactions on the blockchain, why is it not public? This thing, that thing, and so it was all cleared up because it's internal ledger, private ledger. Guess what? Is a private ledger illegal? It's not. A private ledger is not illegal. So why everything does it have to be public? And we know, I mean, from the Himalayan Exchange, there were over $64 million worth of redemptions. Okay.
And the government argues, right? The government argues, oh, but you only show a couple transactions, a couple redemptions. But what are the people that actually had redemptions? Like, you know, all the fellow fighters that didn't show, right?
Like, for example, when you invest in anything, in an asset that you believe, I mean, why would you invest in a depreciating asset? First of all, that would lose money, right? It doesn't make common sense. So, for example, if you were to buy a piece of asset, okay, everybody that's, you know, with us, if you were to buy a piece of asset that you are perceived that you will make a return, right? Obviously, return on investment. And why would you sell it after you've only bought it for a month? When you want, when I mean, have you asked investors, like, when you invest in XYZ, is this for long term, or I mean, what is this, right? So like for as an asset, a true asset, you want to buy and actually hold, right? So what I'm saying is like,
investment
It's
comes
not for
along with
impatient people.
That's right.
It's not
It's
for
like-
impatient people, right?
investment comes along with commitment, right? I think that's the main thing we're trying to get at.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if you bought a piece of real estate, it's worth $1 million, and then and it went up, let's just say $50,000. Why would you sell it and make $50,000 profit when you can say, when you believe that your return on investment maybe is like $1.5 million, but it might take 3 to 5 years to get there. So it doesn't make sense. But anyways, regardless, it's a hard fact evidence that over $64 million has been redeemed, and that's a lot of money.
Yeah, and like last thing I want to mention is the quality of the evidence from the government. This is also a very great point brought up by the defense team, that there are, the judge giving instructions. There are a lot of witnesses by government. They're like 35. Okay, thank you. 35 witnesses, but you gotta focus on the quality of the testimony, not the quantity. A law doesn't mean they're all saying the truth and they're all great witnesses. No, they're not. You think about how they answer questions, right? Like Yali, like Khaled, like those people. There's a classic people, those people that, like, let's say Jenny Lee, right? There's a significant difference when they're on direct examination and cross-examination, right? Direct, they answer flawlessly. Everything you ask, I'll answer. And on cross, they get around with a question every single time. I don't remember. I don't know. Nothing. Like, this is what Sid said literally in the court. And also keep in mind that when those three witnesses, Yali, Khaled, and Limery Rice, have a non-prosecution agreement. The deal is, if you want to keep the deal, is that when government think you're not telling the truth. So if government thinks you are telling the truth that benefits the government, they would not say, "Hey, you're lying." Right?
Right.
So this deal, it's literally
It's based on the government's discretion as to what they believe if you're telling the truth or not. Because if you sign a non-prosecution agreement, or what we learn in court is that if the government, you take the stand for the government, you say X, Y, Z. If after everything's said and done, the government says, I thought, you said this thing, and it's like, so does it really hold? It doesn't really hold too much for the actual witness.
Yeah. So the government has obvious plans with those witnesses when they have an NPA. There's still a certain thing they want them to say, and they determine whether they're telling the truth or not, right? So you think about this, and you would really think about their credibilities, right?
Very contradicting.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And this is like, there's so much in the closing statements, and I really recommend everyone to go to nfscofficial.com to see the official court documents for the closing statements the day before yesterday, Wednesday. Yeah, so I'll give the...
Right, and I think today we actually went through a lot of the arguments, and it's pretty refreshing for us too, because it's been quite a number of days since we have gone to this point. It's been over 30 days already for the trial. So I do want to say that this is very good to refresh our memories on certain testimonies being made and certain arguments being made, right? Because right now we are pretty much seeing the cross-examination and some of the arguments that from the legal teams directly through the closing statement. So that is very interesting as well to see some of the points like pretty much raised directly, things being directly pointed out by the legal teams. So I think that is also very, very interesting. And to know the next time we are on the show, we will get to more about the closing statement from Miles's legal team. So I know that will be a treat because of the things that you guys have already brought up. I think I can already tell this is going to be a great closing statement from Miles's legal team.
Yes.
So with that being said, we will be on again on Monday for Miles trial. Thank you guys for watching today's episode. We will see you next time. God bless.